you pay. Where I'm gonna go with my money on this one, I'm gonna go all in. I'm just gonna pick the money line. I feel really comfortable with Alberto Puello defeating the Spaniard, the grizzled veteran, even though Sandor Martin has almost double the ring experience. I think that his inactivity lately is going to hold true. I also think that Alberto Puello's pace, if this is going to be the same guy that we saw against GAR, I think his pressure, his output, and pace is going to be enough to outpoint Sandor Martin.
I'm sure, especially Puello's going to be the holes, I think, here. But having said all of that, this is... I don't know.
What's up, fight fans? Welcome to my channel. This is Johnny. In today's video, we're going to be going over the statistics that nobody talks about when mentioning this past weekend's world title fight at 140 pounds between the champion Alberto Puello and the challenger Sandor Martin. Guys, before I continue, I want to say thank you to all the new subscribers. Thank you to everybody who's been with me since day one. My YouTube analytics are telling me that 85% of you who are watching my content haven't hit subscribe yet, so could you please do that right now for me? Also, could you like this video as well as hit the bell notification icon? What that'll allow me to do is pop up in your feed every time I put something out that's new. Thank you. Guys, during fight week last week, when we were breaking down the Puello versus Sandor Martin fight and we gave you my prediction, I did pick Puello to beat Martin based on Puello's slick southpaw style, based on his pace and his volume. Now, I'm not gonna lie, the first few rounds of this fight were a bit sketchy, and even when the fight ended, this could have gone either way. I want to first say how much respect I have for Sandor Martin. That guy is all blood and guts, and when I say this next statement, I feel that it's true. If Sandor Martin had a little bit more pop in his punches, he'd be a dangerous proposition at 140. He already is a tricky guy to get out of there. He has a victory over Mikey Garcia, split decision. He lost a close split decision against Teofimo Lopez, which a lot of people think that he won that fight. And this is going to be another one of those tough losses to where he goes back to the drawing board thinking about what could he have done differently. And I think it just comes down to that power. Power is something that you can't teach. A lot of coaches will tell you this. You're born with it. You could work on it, but you either have it or you don't. And unfortunately for Martin, he just doesn't have the pop on his punches to get those decisive victories and to separate himself on a lot of close fight scorecards for the judges to see. And I think that was his downfall in this fight. When you took the pieces of the fight or little moments, it seemed to me that Puello was winning those moments. So in this video, we're gonna break down the statistics. We're gonna talk about the punch stats, the overall punches, the percentages landed, the jabs, and the power shots. Alberto Puello comes out of this fight still the champion at 140 pounds. His stock continues to rise. Boxing's a sport of what have you done for me lately? If you look at an individual fighter's career as a basketball tournament or any sort of round robin tournament, all these fighters could do is win their next fight and move on to the next one. And this is exactly what Puello did. With the fight that happened afterwards, when we got to see Rayo defend his belt against Gary Antoine Russell, and we know how that fight turned out. Gary Antoine Russell put on the performance of a lifetime. He took the belt from Rayo Valenzuela in a devastating fashion, and now this sets up a possible rematch because we know Puello, about 9 months earlier, defeated Gary Antoine Russell by decision, and now they're both champions. So a unified fight at 140 between Puello and Gary Antoine Russell, to me at least, makes a lot of sense. In the comment section below, let me know if you want to see that rematch or if you think Puello should go elsewhere or Gary Antoine Russell should go elsewhere. We know the champions at 140 are the aforementioned Russell, Alberto Puello, Teofimo Lopez, and Richardson Hitchens. So there's some dogs and some killers at 140 with a lot of fun fights to make in the future. Let's take a closer look at how this fight went. Guys, Alberto Puello overcame a determined challenger from Sandor Martin to retain his WBC junior lightweight title on Saturday, winning a close split at Barclays. The scores were 115 to 113 and 116 to 112 for the defending title holder, while the third judge had it 115 to 113 for Martin. And I'm not shocked by that. Like I said, guys, even though I picked Puello to win this fight on my prediction video, and he won my parlay, and I won money, I wouldn't have been upset if Martin would have won. It was one of those fights to where when the judges gave their scorecards and the announcer was reading it, it literally could have gone either way. Although it was Puello who finished the fight stronger in the last two rounds, The story of the early part of the bout was the uncharacteristic aggression from Spain's Martin. And this is what I was saying in the live stream was, in this first few rounds, I was impressed with Martin's game plan, how aggressive he came out, and how frustrated he had Puello. If you would have watched the fight in between some of those rounds, second and third and fourth, Puello was frustrated with his corner. He didn't have any answers, and he was really confused and discombobulated on what Martin was showing him. But as the fight progressed and Puello settled in, he started figuring out a bit more and more, and those mid to later rounds is why the judges gave it to Puello. After Martin's strong start, Puello began to claw his way back in the second half of the fight. Puello sits 24-0, 10 knockouts, made a strong statement in the 8th, landing 2 overhand lefts to begin the round. The final 2 rounds were the best of the fight for Puello, who bloodied Martin with right hooks and overhand lefts. The loss snapped a 2-fight winning streak for Martin, who will likely leave New York to return to Barcelona with a sour taste in his mouth for the second straight fight, after losing a disputed split decision to Teofimo Lopez on his most recent trip to New York in 2022. Guys, now let's take a closer look at the statistics of this fight and learn a little bit about the narrative that played out. Throughout the entire fight, the overall punch stats reads Puello threw 247, landing 83 at a 33% clip, while Martin threw 321, landing 131 at a 41% clip. The body shots were on the side of Martin. Puello only landed 28 power shots, while Martin landed 85. The jabs, it was flip-flopped. Puello threw 279, landing 67 at a 24% clip. Martin only threw 120, landing 31 at a 26% clip. So this was the style of the fight. Martin made a decision to fight it in the clinch. He thought he was going to win a fight by dirty boxing, landing a lot of those bigger power punches, and which he did. But on the other hand, the contrasted style, Puello a little bit longer, used his jab more, touched Martin out more from the outside, and the judges must have saw this and gave more points to him opening the door with his power shots by landing that jab way more frequently and throwing it way more frequently than Martin. Let's look at the total punches. Puello throws 526, landing 150 at a 29% clip. Martin throws 441, landing 162 at a 37% clip. So the power shots were on the side of Martin, the jabs were on the side of Puello, and the activity from the mid to later rounds were on the side of Puello, and that's what tilted the fight. When people say robbery, when I did my tweet right after this fight, a lot of Martin fans said it was a robbery. I have to disagree. This was not a robbery. I think what we learned that Puello is for real at 140, and we already knew about Sandor Martin. This guy is not an easy out. This is why a lot of people do not want to fight him. You got to bring your lunch pill, your hard hat when you fight Sandor Martin. It's going 12 rounds or however long the fight is scheduled for, and you're going to be in the dogfight. You have to be focused the entire fight when you fight him. You have to be switched on, and you can't lose your cool. And we saw this in the early rounds. This is what was bothering Puello, and I think this goes back to if Martin just had a little bit more pop in his punches, I think the fight would have gone a little bit different. In some of these close fights that he loses, I think the judges would have saw something different. And sometimes an optic is all you need in a close fight for it to be tilted this way. So like I said, I'm not upset that Puello keeps his belt. I'm a little bit disappointed as a fight fan for Martin that he leaves again losing another close fight, and we'll see how he recovers from this. In the comment section below, do you want to see Puello fight someone else? Do you want to see him rematch Gary Antoine Russell? And where does Sandor Martin go from here? And one more thing, was this a robbery?